also how I put this all together. So
I almost just did the whole worst marketing ops webinar host thing ever and forgot to record. So, hey, everybody, we just started recording. Just so you know, sorry about that. Let's jump in.
All right. So UTMs base level. Essentially, what we're trying to do is tell a story of the traffic coming to your website or app. Right? What channel are they using? What ads they clicked on? And trying to get more detail out of that, and really just trying to get a sense of where your audience is engaging with your content, and then coming into your database to download a white paper, do a contact request, or get a demo or sign up for your app, whatever that might be. And building them is fairly simple. There's a lot of different tools out there to do it. Google has their own campaign URL builder, where you just plug in your URL, the destination URL, and then you add the tags to it. And there are 5 basic tags. You have your medium, your source, campaign, term, and content. Now with medium, this is required field. This is the channel that people come through. Typically that's display, paid search, paid social, email. Those are the easy ones to track on for a digital medium. For source, it's where it came from, right? So the original point, whether that's Google, LinkedIn, Instagram, or others. You know, let me just share this. I'll share it out here so everyone can see. Okay. So that's source, right? These two are basic essentials that you'll need to do UTM parameters, and a lot of times this is all you really need at a basic level. If you want to dive in more, because you want to see campaign details, meaning if you have that tracking not only to your analytics platform like Google Analytics, or pass that into your marketing automation platform or your CRM, you can add more details into the campaign. And then term and content, I have those as supplementary. If you need them because you have a channel manager or a specific demand gen manager that wants to see those details, yeah, for sure, add them in, but I don't have them required in just a basic setup for my system. Okay. And when you set up these UTM parameters, you always want to make sure that when you add those tags onto the URL, use lowercase words, because then it's just data quality. When it comes into your Google Analytics or into your marketing automation platform more, you don't really want to have to put in automation to normalize those values. It's a lot easier if you just like, okay, I'll make sure that it's clean going in, so my data coming out will look clean. I use the hyphen to separate the words. It's just easier to read for me, and that's what I've used for a long time. There's debates around underscore being better, but don't get into that. Really what it really comes down to is just be consistent when you do this strategy. That's why you document it and map it out, and don't keep it in your head. That's why I wrote it down, is just so you have it. And with this strategy, the end goal of this is so that you can group and organize things in similar categories. So when you go to tell the story to your marketing team or to other internal stakeholders, your sales team or customer success or others, they don't always understand the difference between LinkedIn platform and Facebook and Instagram. They're like, okay, yeah, it's social media, I get it. But you can go into your strategy a lot more internally in your marketing team, talking about, okay, paid social LinkedIn drove so much signups to our app, or created so many demo requests for our sales team. But when you talk to your sales team, they may not even care that it's from LinkedIn, or you just say, oh yeah, that paid social has driven so much of our demand for demo requests in this timeline and more. Okay, so it's really just about logical organization of these and how you can communicate it to other people in your organization. Marketing will care more about like the specific source, but outside of that, from my experience, sales just cares about this grouping of lead source. Oh, did it come from paid search? Cool. All right, great. Was it display ads? Was it retargeting? Great. That's all they're really looking at. But then you can also run metrics on what's the conversion rate for display ads from not only them requesting a demo request, for example, but are those demo requests leading to pipeline? And then again, I group it up at a higher level just so I can show an executive team or a sales leader, okay, digital paid media is driving so much of demo requests or contact requests, and also at what rate are those converting to pipeline? When you start out like in a small organization, for me especially, I was just focusing on these channels. Like I was in paid search, doing Google only. I do PPC here because sometimes I work with other vendors to do this that you can find. Paid social, the sources vary depending on what you use. I've primarily stayed in LinkedIn for paid social. I've played in Facebook and Instagram. I haven't played in TikTok, but if you need to do that, yeah, add a category, create the UTM tag, and you can add it in here. Okay, display retargeting are pretty straightforward. Email for me, if I've driven email primarily through marketing, like your marketing automation platform, whether that's Marketo, HubSpot, Pardot, whatnot, MailChimp, right? You can just say, hey, if you're only driving demand for your campaigns through email marketing, then you really don't have to worry about these other ones like sponsored and sales and customer success. But as you grow, maybe you realize, okay, let's see how much sales is driving demo requests or people coming back to engage on a certain campaign. Also, if you do sponsored emails through vendors specific to your industry, make sure that you give them a URL that's unique to them so that you can see how much they're driving for engagement and at what rate that's converting, because you'll definitely find sponsors with really good lists and then that'll vary to some really bad lists. I'm not sharing those stories. There's just be aware you want to track that URL if you're gonna work with a sponsor and pay them for a list rental. Okay. And then also social. This is how you group it. For me, these are the channels that I've worked in and played in. What I'll also say is this organization system really needs to work for you. So if you're a one-man band, at this level, it can definitely become heavy to maintain and to organize and to keep it running for each marketing campaign. But if you have a little help from like sales team, a demand generation manager, or others, this is fairly easy to maintain. So just make sure that you're consistent, you communicate it, and that you're continually socializing that. And with socializing it, it's because don't just say, limit yourself to marketing qualified leads. Don't limit yourself to just a qualified lead or engagement in account-based marketing. What you really want to do is carry these UTM parameters and lead source category all the way to pipeline generation, to revenue generation. That's going to be a greater conversation that sales will be interested, that your executive team will be interested in, because then they're going to want to know, oh, well, how well is paid digital converting? Hey, for paid digital converting, you can say you're driving X number for demo requests, and 25% of those become pipeline opportunities, and then we have a win rate of 65%. That's pretty compelling numbers. And you can then take that to say, okay, if we're converting so well into pipeline and revenue, where can we double down at? That's why I put these categories in here. And as you have those conversations with your executive team, you can level up. So because I take these tags and carry them from the person record to the opportunity or deal, I also need to infer other channels that we're using. And that's what I've done here, is I do have a general bucket, right, for last refer, and this is my catch-all direct. But as I work with other sponsored webinars or hosted webinars, and you get into this, you can bring those up. And then we'll also talk about the complex, right? This is a lot more to try and manage and maintain for sure. Being a one-man band, if you're just like marketing ops, one person, or demand generation that's trying to wear two hats, this is a lot, but it's really valuable to say, okay, I can only do so much at one time. So let me just focus here. And you can then show what's your ROI, what's your conversion rates in these channels. Have those conversations with your marketing leadership, with your sales leadership, with your executive team. Because then you can ask for more headcount, for more help, for more dollars. And then you'll naturally, as your company grows, you'll move into more channels. And this will just naturally fill in. You won't require a reorganization of the system or moving around of categories and groups. Like, it will just be easier to maintain. So that's why I've grouped it like this. This is what the organization looks like for me. Where I will say there are some challenges and other things that you'll just have to like watch out for as you go through this. Purchase list, I put it on here. I personally don't do it. I advise against it. I hate it.
I love that.
But some people do it, right? But you're not going to get out of that rabbit hole of like a sales leader or a marketing leader who's like, no, let's go purchase the list. It's cheap. Let's go get Zoom info, grab all this audience, and we'll email them. Like, okay, if you want to test it, that's cool, but you better tag them. And I guarantee you're going to get that list, and they're like, oh, cool, we spent 5,000 on that list. Do we get any? And we got 200 marketing qualified leads. Cool, yeah, great. Any opportunities? Nope, none.
Nope.
And even if it's like you do, that's similar to like content syndication. If you pick a bad vendor for content syndication, you can sing the praises and say, this is awesome. We spent 10,000. This was our cost per lead, and we have 500 marketing qualified leads. Awesome, great. But I encourage you, don't stop there. Take it to opportunity, because then I guarantee you're going to look at opportunities and be like, we got nothing out of that. And so really what you did is just burn through money on the marketing side and probably upset some of your sales team because they're like, it wasn't a qualified lead for us. Didn't lead to opportunities. And so that you have that data to go back to your executive team and say like, hey, let's probably not do that, but let's look up here. Hey, do you know our organic social from, say, YouTube is generating 10% of our pipeline, and they close at 60%. Holy cow, what is that? Well, you can go back and take a look and see what it is. And they say, okay, let's go double down on YouTube for whatever reason. All right, that's why you organize it this way. And this is why you want to carry these tags from the contact all the way to the account and the opportunity.
I'm gonna just share a bit of what I'm already seeing on these Q&A stuff coming in, since you dropped that nugget there. The question from Chuck, how does this UTM data tie into your CRM, or does it? Do you also push UTM data to your CRM? And I think, it's the flow. So you sort of touched on like you need to pass it all the way through. Maybe share a little bit about your tech stack, Ian, and how you're passing that around.
Oh yeah, good question, Chuck. So my tech stack is Webflow is for my content management system, my website. I have Marketo for my marketing automation platform, and then I have Salesforce for my CRM. I do reporting out of Salesforce. I also do Tableau. How it flows, Chuck, I'll show you here really quick. Okay. So when someone comes to your website, you want to add a first party cookie. If you have segment, you can also do this with segment to capture your UTM tags. You do that so it's holding on to those values in a first party cookie. When the person submits the form, the data that you capture plus the UTM parameters get put together. If this is a new lead, then it goes into my Marketo, right? If you use HubSpot, it's the same thing, Pardot, the same thing. You want to create a new record and you'll have your basic fields you have there, but you can also add your UTM parameters there. I stamp original source for lead, but I also keep track of most recent. And then I'm going to go through a laundry list of things that I need to do for lead processing. The end goal is you're going to get to your CRM. For me, it's Salesforce. And after data enhancement and more, now I have all this detail about this contact record. That contact record, when they go to be associated with an opportunity in Salesforce, I also grab the UTM tags. Okay.
I love that. This layout is fantastic. Harjit says, I love the flow charts you have put together to document Ian.
Thanks.
Josh, I think, and Chuck, if that didn't maybe take care of everything, let me know. But happy to keep going with any other questions anybody has. Josh Ames, you asked about carrying the value through on the pipeline and tracking them in separate fields for each stage, like most recent source. So I think hopefully that took care of you.
Yeah, I'll say those aren't standard out of the box fields. So those fields like that I capture for UTM parameters, I use original and I use most recent, just because they're clearer for me. So you see them here. You're going to have to create those fields as custom fields. You can lock down as a pick list value, or you can just leave it as open. I will say, careful with the visibility on this. A lot of times sales and some marketing members may not care. So you can have them on your CRM, but you don't need to be visible. You as marketing operations or demand generation, you know it's there in the background, it's hidden and it's working. You just make sure that it comes out in reporting when it comes down to pipeline source.
Makes sense. For well, actually, hey, we have Stephanie. Stephanie, do you want to jump in and share a little bit and ask some questions?
Sure. So it's funny that you, Ian, are talking about most recent and everything like that, because we're in the middle of smashing together 3 companies. Hold on, I'm not done. Yeah, Mike knows my ongoing.
It's such a nightmare.
Mike knows my ongoing because I've presented on migrations, and apparently the company decided I got to own them all. So get ready for it.
Okay.
2 channel partner tools, 2 CRMs, 3 HubSpot portals, 7 websites, 12 different Google Analytics platforms.
Yeah.
I love y'all are all shaking your heads.
Everybody's like, that's it? Oh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah. No, I have 75 tools in my tech stack today that I have to somehow optimize.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
With that being said, one of the first things we tackled was aligning on our UTM tracking strategy. One of the challenges we face today is that half the team is creating campaigns, and I've built a UTM tracker. I've used pick list values. I've used formulas. So in theory, it should just be pick list, choose one, choose one, choose one. Formula creates magical UTM code. But they still managed to get this wrong. And I don't know how. But it is what drives our lead source. And so we're running into this instance where we constantly have to go back, the operations team, and I have a team of 5 at this point, where we're every month having to go back and go, where did we miss this gap? And it's because they come up with some random value that impacts our UTM functionality. So when you have that volume of tools and the most complex level of tracking strategy, how do you work with folks who are less familiar with the implications of the importance of UTM strategy?
Man, Stephanie, my heart goes out to you. That's hard. That's challenging. That's up there with some of the harder
There's a reason my cup
integrations
says I might
that
have
I've heard about. Oh man. All right. So from the sounds of it, I just want to ask a few clarifying questions.
Oh, go for it.
Sounds like you probably have like an Excel document or a Google sheet that they go in, do drop down values, and it pulls out a URL that they copy from the cell and use, correct?
Yes, we've got that. We've got it templatized for the campaign naming conventions, so that could be standardized across all systems. Same with the UTM values. The only piece that is kind of open-ended is not the campaign, but we also capture CP1 and CP2 fields, and we leave those more open-ended.
Okay. So you're using that, you got your team using it. Are these demand generation managers? Are these campaign managers? Are these sales leaders?
They're product marketers.
Product marketers. Okay. Yeah.
So the demand team does great. The demand gen team is great. The channel marketing team is great. It's my product marketing team that seems to be struggling the most. And I don't know how to convey to them why and how, and also figure out what they're doing.
Yeah. Where I would have that conversation, like you're doing the right thing, you're socializing, you're trying to educate, give them on-demand resources. I'd also talk to them in their terms. So for product marketers, they're definitely focused on, okay, who is our audience? Where are they engaging? So use those terms with them. And that's why I group things in a certain way, is because you need to make it easier and talk in their language. I was telling Mike about this earlier, is I recently moved with my wife, and we were just grabbing stuff out of our house, and she picks up this thing, and she's like, "Oh, what is this?" I'm like, "Oh, that's a miter saw. It's a box miter saw. You know, I can cut trim board at an angle." And the whole time she's looking at me dead in the eyes, like, "What? I don't understand that." Like, "Oh, it's a tool." Okay, I'll put it with tools. And she knows how to group it. She knows how to organize it, because then I spoke at what she understood and what was important to her. She was just trying to group and organize it. It's a tool. So if you go to your product team and say, "Hey, we want to organize this, and I can help you to identify where is our target audience," right? Do you as product want to have your launches more on through a paid search and you're going to get more engagement, or is it going to be at a specific industry event that's unique to our audience? I can't help you to identify where your message is going to resonate unless you kind of help me with these UTM parameters.
Right.
Okay. That's when you just don't talk about UTM mediums or tags or source. It's not in their purview. It's not what they focus on. hey, where's our target audience? Where are they engaging? Oh, cool. They're on paid search. Great. Let's work on that messaging. Let's work on that positioning. And then they can focus there. The other thing I'll say is with a larger team, sometimes you have to do pre-flight checks.
Yes.
I constantly do these with emails. So even like the original person who made an email isn't the one who does the pre-flight check.
Yes.
You probably want to try something.
We've got that QA process in place at this point. It's only gone into place in the last couple weeks because I only got the head count for the one to really do that in the last week. But yeah, our team has more than doubled in size in less than 6 weeks, which is adding to the complexity as well from all of this. I do love, I do love your chart that you have right here, because I think I tend to operate in the extended chart that you showed.
Oh yeah, the complex.
Which makes their brains, well, not only the complex here, but the other tab you pulled up.
Oh yeah.
Like if you were to go look at my workflow that runs all of this, most people take a look at it and go, oh my goodness. And that is because I am trying to smash together so many systems in this interim state while we go through more migrations and mergers. So I think having a visual like this is also very beneficial to that team because they start to see how the groups go.
Yep. And as you build these visuals out, like I love Lucidchart for this.
Mm-hmm.
When I communicate this to some of my sales leaders and other executives, this just boggles their mind. They're like, I don't get it. Even some of my other ones that I make. So I will say, this is just an example of build a system that you can maintain and that will scale.
Mm-hmm.
So we are gonna, like this, for example, this is like overly detailed. This is for me.
Yeah.
Right. This is for my sanity. This isn't what I share with my executive team. They're just gonna get dizzy. For my executive team, it's like 3 steps. Oh, they're on the website. They come to our marketing automation platform, then they go to our CRM, and then sales takes it from there. Mm-hmm. So I would say be conscious of your audience who you're speaking with, and don't try to confuse them with a lot of details around marketing and terms and acronyms. Just try and keep it high level, because sometimes it's just like 3 objects. They go to our website, they fill out a form, goes to our marketing automation platform, goes to our CRM, and from the CRM, a BD will follow up. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Then that detail, you dive into that detail and own it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we've gotten built within. We're moving to Marketo by year end. Thank goodness.
Wow. Okay.
So we're moving away from multiple platforms to one platform. That's our big drive for this year, is condensing a lot of those tools to single tools. And so I'm trying to get everything as much aligned and everyone as much aligned now before we get into that future state tool system, so that they're used to the process earlier rather than later. And I don't have to retrain.
Yep. Keep it simple and you'll get there. Good luck, Stephanie.
Thank you.
I got Harjit.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Stephanie, I was just trying to clarify some of the questions too, just trying to help you there. Is that, are there any key channels that you were trying to measure traffic from where the UTMs are incorrect? Because this is a common challenge and I come across that too from our sales organization. So I was just curious about that.
Yeah, no. So some background information before I explain it, and just minor background information here is the 3 companies I'm smashing together. One of them in the last 12 months actually purchased 3 other companies. So, and they never really, all of y'all are just like, what? Exactly. And so we have a number of what you would call more startup organizations that have kind of built jury-rigged, duct-taped versions of all of these systems. And that includes the integration functionality. And so more often than not, when we're talking with one of those integration partners, we do a number of paid sponsored content, a number of, we also have alliances. So one of our biggest alliance partners is Autodesk. And this is where it's going to get complicated. It is where Autodesk provides our UTM values to their partners to put into their campaigns, which requires adding CP1 and CP2 values to drive and capture that it came from an alliance partner that was brought in through the alliance Autodesk that led to so forth, so on. So I can't grant every individual partner all the way down the line, access to these tools. So I have to rely on some of that phone tree situation going on. And that's where it's starting to get more complex and where we're seeing those problems.
Got it. Makes sense. Yeah, I think I completely understand. And it seems like quite a few people in the chain that have to pass this UTM information and to
Correct.
get it right. It's an effort. And I think in the past, personally, I have leveraged more of refer information in that situation. Things don't get right, and refer gives you some insight into where the traffic came from. That's what I think Ian's pointing out to could be a good way or a good substitute there.
Yeah, we've also implemented a tool called Examplify. I'm going to somewhat promote this particular solution because it does allow the cross-branded marketing. It's not the only solution out there. It just happens to be the one we implemented, which is allowing us to control some of that. But obviously there's a buy-in process that occurs with it.
Makes sense. Awesome. Yeah, happy to chat further separately if you're.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, anything, y'all. The volume of work we have right now is a little overwhelming.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's awesome. I love it. Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah.
All right, Josh, Ames, I'm going to let you talk. If you want to jump in and ask a couple of your questions, feel free.
Sure. Give me just a quick second to pull it up here.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. All good.
Put him right on the spot.
So I mean, we've been tracking like original source and most recent source as well. And I think somebody else had a similar question too, but how, like, there's always this issue, right? When you get to the actual pipeline of, you may have 3 contacts that you've sourced, but only one of them is actually associated with the deal. And then you're trying to understand, okay, well then what is the actual source for the deal? And just trying to understand how you approach that, whether it's based on, first touch, last touch, or like in your example, most recent source, or if you're differentiating between, I think it was on your second chart, if you're differentiating between lead source and original source, or how are you differentiating those?
Good question. Yep. Good question, Josh. So I can answer you and help you out specifically. Can you tell me what you're using for your CRM?
Yeah, we're using HubSpot.
You're on HubSpot. Okay. Yeah. So it's a little different from Salesforce and a few others. Okay. So the other question is, how long is your sales cycle?
Yeah, I think we're running close to 90 days lately.
Okay. So you got a shorter sales cycle, not enterprise, which is easier. Yep. But you say you got multiple people related to that deal, right? Sometimes with more enterprise deals, you have more people at the company that are involved in the discussion, right?
Correct.
Okay. And specifically with HubSpot, this is what I do, is identifying the primary contact. Sometimes that's not your first person that engages with you, right? That's going to be the source for the contact. Maybe that's a manager or senior manager, the person who's going to use the tool. But then maybe a director or a senior director comes in and jumps into this conversation, and he's going to be then the driver. He approves the budget. He thinks the tool is going to be great as far for accomplishing what they need. And then it's going to be a little confusing when you go to your deal, because likely your primary contact, he may or may not have UTM tags. That's why I kind of have done this.
Yep.
There is a default all. If I don't have it, primary contact, then I'm just going to use the first person who reached out, especially with high intent in channels, right? So Josh, just so I get a little more specific here, are you a product-led growth company, or how do people buy your solution?
Yeah, we are in the middle of starting to make the shift to PLG.
Okay.
Up until now, yeah, up until now, it's been very, not that we're enterprise, but I'll say enterprise sales method. I mean, it's very sales heavy.
It's very sales heavy. Yeah, and that's great. That's fine, right? Then I would say for a lot of these lead sources and conversations, right, I would just have in the lead processing, identifying as your sales does their outbound motion, or even taking inbound, you can do URLs on their emails, but also, you know, if none of this is here, but you know that they had a demo, you can make a little more custom to you. What's the source of that deal? Hey, this person was sales outbound motion, or maybe it was even a sales inbound. As long as, and those can happen off, I would say just take the first person and keep it simple.
Okay.
Because you're going to transition to product-led growth. Just take the first person that engages. Yeah, there's going to be other people. They probably got pulled in by sales, but that first person that comes in with the deal on HubSpot, take the take lead source category, and put it onto the deal. Keep it simple, right? People might nitpick it for different reasons, and they're trying to talk about attribution models, and they're talking about getting credit for the deal and how much pipeline is each source. Hopefully it doesn't come into that infighting, because it's not helping anybody. It really isn't.
Yeah.
What you want to do is, yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, we just ran a session like a couple weeks back with Harjit and team on how it's about giving credit, not taking credit.
Yeah. Well, and so to clarify there at the end too, because that's kind of the approach I've had, is whoever the first engaged is, or whoever sales actually creates the deal from, like whatever contact they had originally reached out to is what we're setting it as. But I'm curious, because you asked earlier, like how long our sales cycle is. So do you take that into consideration when you're deciding whether you're carrying over the original source or the most recent source?
I do. Okay. So enterprise deals, longer sales cycle, you want to find those transition points when someone engages with you. And what I mean by transition points is, let's just say hypothetical journey. All right, Bob comes in and he checks out your solution, downloads an ebook, and your sales team is like, great, this is awesome. And they go follow up, and he's like, hey, I'm not interested at this time. And then he just reads the ebook, he reads your content on LinkedIn, he goes to your Facebook, and he's great with it. And then say 6 months down the road, he comes back and fills out a demo request. All right, that demo request, did they come from the same place? No, you just want to capture that as the most recent. So you're going to have both. You'll have originally, he came to download the ebook 6 months ago, and that was through just Google search. But then also 6 months later, he came direct traffic and requested a demo.
Yep.
I will say, obvious. Josh, what I would layer in, don't worry about the attribution. One thing that I don't know if you follow Chris Walker. He's been doing some really interesting stuff. Something that I would suggest adding, so you don't get stuck in just like the attribution
Yeah.
data game. Add how'd you hear about us? And I think
Yeah.
that's going to open up a lot of doors. You know, it's messy data.
I'm a big
Have it be
fan
an
of
open
that too.
text field, but you know, embrace it, because you're going to find a lot more interesting stories in there.
Yeah.
And don't just rely on this quantitative data. Pull in this qualitative, okay? And that'll help you out.
Cool. Thank
I'm
you.
curious for anybody still kind of tuning in here. How many of you maybe just +1 or say yes or something in the chat if you're using a "How did you hear about us" field? Yeah, see, I don't think very many people, not yet. Planning on it. Yep, Josh. Yeah, thought about it, not yet. I imagine, you know,
David, yeah.
marketing ops, we run into demand gen fights, right? Where we're like, hey, conversion rate optimization team is saying like, I don't want to mess with the form. But, you know, again, thinking about sort of bringing it back to this conversation Ian was having earlier about who's the, you know, how do you present this to the audience and what do they care about? You know, one of the best things you're probably ever going to learn, and I agree with Chris Walker on this one, is by pulling apart that raw data and saying like, actually, this is how they heard about us. Like, I don't care what the UTM says. I actually heard about you from the podcast, you know, or whatever it is, right? And it's some like random person sent me here, but I found your ad on Google and I clicked that. Like, you know, let's see that client's getting.
Yeah, because we are coming to an age where like we can connect more, and there's a lot more communities here through Slack, Discuss, and more Facebook groups. So when
I agree.
us as a group are going to like look at solutions, and we look at, if you look at the MarTech map of 8,000 solutions, you're like, holy cow, like this is just overwhelming. And even just in one category, there's a few hundred tools. You're like, I don't know what to choose. What I do is I just go to those communities. I know someone who has my similar tech stack, and I ask like, hey, is anyone like looking at these tools? Let's have a conversation. And people love to talk shop and say, this is what my value out of this ABM tool or this CRM or others. So just keep that in mind. There's a lot of that's happening in channels that you can't track with UTM parameters. So don't be so set on these as being the gold standard, like they're going to cover everything. They won't. They absolutely won't. So just be honest with yourself and be comfortable with the messiness.
Totally. And I think, you know, as the sort of title of, I think what this title ended up being for this session was a framework, right? Use it as a framework towards revenue. It's not the silver bullet towards measuring revenue attribution. Hey, Raymond, I see you asked a question. I'm going to give you permission to talk if you want to ask it out loud, but I'll read it. First, you said UTM tracking builder should be incorporated into the main campaign name creation, right? Because we have offline campaigns, or speak to the campaign name strategy and UTM naming strategy. Can you clarify a little for me on what you mean there?
Yeah, it speaks to the earlier point, right? You've got your primary campaign and you're using different channels to drive traffic for that primary campaign. And one gap is not realizing how you name things, right? Because when you're naming nomenclature in the UTMs and that campaign names in Salesforce, there should be some continuity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I was asking, yeah, so that's how Ian was wondering, you know, how have you solved that problem? Or is there a strategic kind of direction, right, in the naming structure? I think you were beginning to explain some of that, but yeah, if you could regurgitate that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, sure. Great question, Raymond. And this is, just to reiterate, this is specifically for people who use Salesforce as their CRM. With Salesforce, you get campaigns. Campaigns is where you can track engagement with those things. So typically it's like an easy one is a contact us form. Do they visit the page or do they download it? I mean, fill out the form. And same thing with demo request. Do they visit the page or do they just engage, right? So you can track that engagement. And these UTM parameters, I do create custom fields on the campaign member object that you can see here, Raymond, to track that. As far as naming conventions, okay, so Raymond, I'll go with you with two scenarios here. So 2 different ways that I've seen it and 2 different ways that I've done it. One way to do campaign organization is having the name directly aligned to a combination of channel, asset, and you can do geography or source. Okay, so it's a combination of that. What that looks like is, say I have a new research paper coming out. I usually typically start with like year, month, date. That's what I use. It's easier to organize, and I'll tell you why in a bit. So year, month, date, and then I go channel. I also go partner is optional, and then a 3-word name at the end. And so it's a mixture of that. The great thing is it's easier for anyone who's in your CRM to find it. If they can't remember the date, if they can't remember the name of it, whatever, they can hunt and search for it in different ways that is easy for them to organize. Okay.
Yep.
The downside to this is, the nice part is, hey, you don't need custom fields sometimes on the campaign member object because you have this research paper. You have a campaign that's for LinkedIn. You have a research paper that's for Facebook paid. You have a research paper that's for your sponsored. You have a research paper for your hosted webinar. But all of a sudden you notice that your one research paper now has 20 campaigns.
Yeah.
Are you willing to create 20 campaigns every time? I've done it. It's not fun to maintain. It's hard. It's really hard.
No.
Because then you're just like, because I use Marketo, I had to create those Salesforce campaigns, 20 for one research paper. Then I mirrored Marketo programs on the other side because not all those leads were the same. So I had to treat them differently. Just because someone comes in through a Facebook paid does not mean the same as someone who came directly to my through marketing email and got the research paper, right? Those are completely different leads. They're not at the same level. I had to treat them differently. It was impossible to maintain, but some people do it. The other way that I've done it, and I like because I can easily maintain it being a team of 1, is I create one Salesforce campaign for the research paper, right? Year, month, date, research paper, and then, a 3-word description. And then on the campaign member object, I add these custom fields. And then I can do reporting off the campaign member object, regardless if they're a lead or contact. And if you're in Salesforce, you know that pain of reporting. So I do it off the campaign member object. And then I can say for the research paper, okay, who came in through paid search, who came in through organic, who came through email, how much of it was sales. And then I can even do reporting off, how'd you hear about it? So that's the method that I use, and I do it that way because it's easier to maintain. And it doesn't really align directly back to UTM tags. And again, I do that because at that level, I have more of my sales team looking at that campaign. And they don't always get, okay, why'd you name it Google paid search? What does that mean? They don't understand the nuance that those leads are going to be different if someone just comes in through a paid ad on Facebook as opposed to someone who came in through a sales email or a marketing email.
Thank you.
Yeah, hope that helps.
Ian, and I'm sorry, I because I'm in my role right now, I can't quite ask the question. So when it comes to the integration functionality, because I love that idea, that would probably solve a lot of the pain points that my team sees today as we move into Marketo in terms of capturing the custom fields for the UTM. Do you have additional mapping that captures that data, or are you using because you have Marketo, if I recall correctly, are you using a smart program to push the most recent value over to the campaign object?
I do that in Salesforce.
Okay.
Capturing, so if you can see here, when I create this, a lead record or contact record, I grab most recent, and I also have original source.
Okay.
So I stamped that, and then I use Salesforce to because I'm passing a Salesforce campaign ID through.
So you're
this
using the lookup value.
Yeah, you can. Sorry, this isn't completely ready for game time, Stephanie. Let's just be honest. So if you pass through with the form field, the Salesforce campaign ID, that 15 character, 18 character code.
Yeah.
What you can do is in Salesforce, you say, hey, if this is the ID, associate the contact or lead to the campaign, but at the same time, grab most recent and heard about from and stamp it to the campaign member record. That way you're only doing it in one place and it scales.
Yeah, and I love that idea. So thank you for sharing.
Yep. The other detail I'll put in here, Stephanie, is you also want to make sure that after you stamp it to the campaign member record, you want to wipe it. Keep original source, that'll never change, but most recent, just wipe it.
Yeah, overwrite it every time.
Yeah, yeah, we have it right now where we capture most recent and overwrite it upon every submission. I've not yet pushed it to the campaign. We take advantage of campaigns. We take advantage of the parent, child relationship on the campaign object. I put a tool in the chat that I found very useful to locking down the campaign statuses, since Lightning does not possess the ability to clone. You have to write them new, and you can change fonts, and oh my goodness, it can be a pain in the butt. So we've locked a lot of it down. This is just the one piece I think I was missing. So it's great to see how y'all are doing this from a scalability standpoint.
Yeah. And I'm working on cleaning and updating this, and everyone here, I love the feedback. Connect with me on LinkedIn. If this works or doesn't work or something's not clear, like, hey, I'd love to talk shop, work with you on this, because like we're all trying to make this scalable and we don't always get time to document it. I'm working on this one, Stephanie. Connect with me, and as I get to the next level of this, I'll give some better detail here.
Don't worry, I've already sent you a LinkedIn invite.
Multitasking, there we go.
Well, and as you all know, you can come, I think you can find Ian and MoPros on Slack, and LinkedIn. He's been super helpful to me through this as we've been learning together. I took on a project, and Ian, this has been a lot of fun. For those of you who may have joined a little later, we want to thank Stack Moxie for bringing Ian over to us and helping to support our community. And I was glad to be a part of this event. So thank you, Stack Moxie and Veronica, for helping us kick this event off. This has been a lot of fun. And if I will shamelessly plug for them, I really do like their product. I was involved in they built a little UTM builder. I was involved as a part of one of their candidates to interview and understand what do we in marketing ops really need from a UTM builder. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out, go check it out. It's free. It does a lot of the standardized stuff. But Ian, this has been fun, man. And I'm sorry, we had so many great questions. I'm going to pass those over to Ian. We're going to work on answering those, I think, in the community. So thanks all for participation today. This has been a lot of fun.
That was great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for hanging out.